Hey friendos, it's DW. Today I wanted to recap my overall Ludum Dare 47 experience as a solo amateur game developer with a family and a non-game development day job and yada yada yada. Game dev is not my full-time job, it is a passion of mine and I would call myself an amateur at best. Yet I chose to take on a 3-day game jam where I need to produce a product or a game in 3 days with all those real life responsibilities hanging overhead as well. So I want to talk about what that experience was as a solo, because I consciously made the choice to do it solo, and just what that took to actually get me through that and get to do that. So let's get into it. So why even enter a game jam like Ludum Dare? Well, in reality, I've been having something of a creative slump, and I've talked about that on the devlog previously. And so I've participated in Ludum Dare before. I did the April one back for Ludum Dare 46, and I thought with this coming around the corner, I thought I could use that as a target to not only test my skills of a game developer to see if they've actually improved, but to test myself to see if I really wanted to be doing this or if this is really just sort of a side fun thing. And there's no wrong answer here, but I wanted to see how much of my heart was actually in this. And by competing and putting myself in a compressed time box, I thought that might be a good option or opportunity for me to really test my discipline on this and my resolve about whether or not I wanted to be a game developer at all. And so to solve my creative slump and testing self-resolve problem, Ludum Dare was around the corner and boom, I decided to participate. And so why do a 3-day game jam instead of something bigger? There's plenty of other game jams out there, including the GitHub Game Off that's coming up in November. Again, it was right around the corner. I'd already participated in it. And, I wanted something that will, if I didn't actually have my heart into this, I didn't want to commit to something long term. I wanted something that would really require some energy, really require some commitment and support to get me through it, and whether or not I was willing to do that. So it was really pretty important for me to do something that I found valuable and that I thought was interesting, and not something I could draw out over a course of 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and postpone it. So for the game jam, I realized there's going to be 3 things I'm really going to have to focus in on to prepare for it. One, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm determined to get this thing done, like really focus my energy and really commit to getting this thing done. So really have some determination. Second thing is some good self-discipline and self-management skills. As my own creative director or creative lead on a game project and no one to respond or report to, I needed to make sure I kept my scope in check, and my lack of experience could exponentially grow those projects. So I had to really make sure that I knew that I was keeping it boiled down into a small box. But the last thing I needed time. The more time I have to commit to the project, the better off I am. Now, and for some of you that might seem like an obvious one. Maybe you have an abundance of time, but I have a full-time day job that is not game development. I have a family and they've got activities and school and all this kind of stuff going on, and a house I got to help manage. So at the end of the day, time is a very precious and somewhat rare resource in a lot of cases. And so I needed to figure out a way to find as much time as possible to really commit to Ludum Dare 47. For determination and self-discipline, you'll see that what I kind of did to get myself ready for that in my previous videos with respect to the portfolio review and analysis of the feedback, along with the preparation of a code base to kind of build on, including a little bit of animation, and kind of started tinkering with some sound and different things to get myself ready for Ludum Dare. And so what I ended up getting ready with was, one, I could do some pixel art with Sprite, so that's a tool that I was using. And I also ended up getting more and more familiar with the Godot APIs. I wanted to make sure that I could do stuff like sound and understand how the animation pieces worked and how to integrate Sprite animation data into Godot and what were the best options for that. So I kind of worked through some of those technical challenges on how these pipelines, or kind of a game asset pipeline, would work before I got into it. For the self-discipline, self-management part, I spent time going through my old game library and watching Let's Plays so I could really understand or analyze simple game mechanics. So I tend to focus in on retro, so things like dialogue systems or 2D movement systems, these things are the things that I focused in on and kind of tried to figure out how I could combine them into an interesting game experience. Now, for time, that was something I couldn't quite control all by myself. As I've mentioned in numerous videos and in this one, I have the day job, I have a family that I help manage, I have a house to help manage, I have a real life. And game development is not my career, or it's really my B time. So for this, I actually looked for support, and I looked towards work by getting a vacation day, which I did manage to take a vacation day to take an extended weekend. And I looked to my family to see if we could kind of get things ready for everybody to minimize the amount of time I had to spend managing the house and the family, which I leaned on my kids specifically and my significant other, who helped manage the kids during that weekend a lot. Even though I was still there and present and helping, she did the majority of the work that weekend, and for that I can't thank them enough. So thanks, family. All right, so where were we? Prep complete. Time acquired, game jam starts, theme is announced, stuck in a loop, and I immediately feel the benefits of all that prep. What had happened was I had been tinkering with some ideas and doing that game mechanic analysis, and what I found was I was kind of toying with this idea of getting ready for work, something about the mundane routine of getting ready to go out to your adventure for the day, and it's something that we do every day. It fit really well with stuck in a loop, and that's where I went with it. I immediately went to work on how do I turn my existing game mechanics that I developed in my code base and turn that into an actual game that fits getting ready for work in a looping setting, so get ready for work every morning and then see how it succeeds. 2 days later, it's Sunday night. I've done this for, again, about 48 hours. I've committed a lot of time into it. And at this point, I have a working prototype. I have something to demo, and I do that at on the Gamejam Twitch stream, which is our local hosting of the Ludum Dare Game Jam in Winnipeg. But here's the thing. It's not everything I want it to be. So it's lacking in sound. It doesn't have the sound effects or the music for that matter. I found that the gameplay wasn't quite there. It was simple enough, but there was something that didn't quite make it feel like a full game. It felt kind of hollow. Mainly that there was no versatility, no variety in the content. And so, luckily for me, I had spent that time prepping to get more time and booked Monday off. So I had another 24 hours to flesh out what I already had. And so I went back to work. The next 24 hours were pretty intense. I really nailed down onto producing more content, and I created a whole song. Didn't use any of the prep that I had done before. I actually dug up an old Bracky's video about Bosca Coil, Terry Kavanaugh's music editor thing that he has out up on Itch and out there in the world. So I'd compose on my electric piano, and then I would enter it into Bosca Coil and follow that Bracky's tutorial to get an original song in there. Then I integrated that into the game. Previously in my code prep, I had actually worked with some sound effects, so I kind of recorded some new ones, added them to the game, brought that branch of code in and merged it all together to make it work. And then lastly, I leaned in on my narrative writing skills and the technology that I used, which was InkScript, which is from Inkle Studios, who've done games like 80 Days and more recently Heaven's Vault and a bunch of other ones too. And I leveraged the functionality built into that engine. So it's a dialogue engine that provides you stuff with like branching and logic and variables and all this kind of stuff that you can do with it. So I just kind of leaned in on that and made some versatile content for the existing actions, not worrying about adding more and more stuff, just adding versatility and a bit of dynamic content, I guess, to the gameplay itself. The other thing I realized I'd kind of forgotten about was an actual win-lose condition for the game. Although I had my game loop, I didn't have a win or lose condition. And so again, leaning in on my previous portfolio, I went back and found it to be sort of a survival game, very much like the last Ludum Dare entry, Little Shop of Wall Street. So get 3 strikes or 3 losses, you're out, survive 10 days, you win. Very, very simple, probably too simple to be fair, but it was good enough to get it to a full game experience level, to give you a taste of what that gameplay could be. We got a song in there, we got sound effects in there, we have the fleshed out narrative. I added a full gameplay loop to make sure there's win-lose conditions. And that was that. I called it quits and I submitted my game, and Out the Door was officially submitted at that point. And that was the final version. I fleshed out, did some other stuff too, like I added some cover art and worked on the game page and stuff like that. I'd remembered to do that from the previous game jams, really kind of try to give it a little bit of polish. At the end of the day, it was done, and I was immensely satisfied with the whole experience. What I found was that I was really satisfied with the result, that there was actually a game there that I liked. And that's something new. I mean, the other games were cool. I was proud of my work, but they weren't complete titles. Like Little Shop, didn't get the whole game complete. It was lacking features. Car Scientist was really an enhanced tech demo of what I did before, and especially it was me porting Unity code over to Godot, and that was really what I accomplished there. But it did have a full game loop, but it was lacking the full immersion with the sound and the music. That makes a big difference. And so seeing all this come together and having something out the door for the end of the game jam was just very satisfying and just great. Although there was a couple of gotchas right at the end there. For one, post-submission, my first real-life player, my significant other, she played it and immediately found an input bug that I later patched pretty quickly. It wasn't a big deal, but it was something I had to work through. I didn't do enough testing, clearly. And I also had to get my code base and everything reorganized. I found that the game and my stuff, like my deployment pipelines and stuff, they had clearly broken and lapsed, and I wasn't paying enough attention over the last 24 hours. Given that's fully understandable for a game jam, I'm not criticizing myself, but it is something that I noticed. Had that continued, had I had a longer period of time to let that, let's call it that mess accumulate, that technical debt or that debt accumulate, it would have been unmanageable after even 2 or 3 days. Let alone this was just a 24-hour period of just trying to get through a bunch of creative tasks and get them into the game in some way, shape, or form. Then after all that, I just spent a good week or so playing other people's Ludum Dare games. Not just to get mine ranked, I liked seeing what other people have produced, but it does help that the more you rank other people, the higher your game shows up on the search results and the more likely people are to play your game. Because I did want to get ranked, and I did eventually. I do have enough scores and rankings now to be officially ranked, so that's really fantastic. But then after that, I kind of crashed. I kind of let it all slide, and I needed to kind of let it burn down. I just really had to crash from the whole thing. It was an exhausting experience, very satisfying, but absolutely exhausting. But now I have another game to add to my portfolio, whether I take it further or not. And I really am interested in this game. I want to see what else I can do with it, just like I have the other ones. But I don't know, this one, I've had other people give me similar feedback saying there's something here, and I think I want to explore that more. And it's a really, really good feeling. Now that the dust has settled and I've gone back to the code and played it again and, started triaging some of the deep-rooted technical issues I found in my deployment pipeline and stuff, I realized that this project, this little experiment, was a massive success. So not only did I test my skills and determine if I had the determination to do this and the self-discipline, but I also saw that I had the resolve and the passion to keep at this project, and that's huge. And so I'm going to keep at the game development thing, at least in my B time, as much as I can. And I'm ultimately not going to participate in the GitHub Game Off either. This project is something that I want to explore a bit more on my own terms. And I don't know what that means yet. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future video if it ever comes up. But right now, I'm happy with the outcome, and I don't want to ruin that by tacking on another one or distracting myself of that feeling. I want to kind of live in this moment and figure out what I want to do with this idea and really digest it. As for the rest of you watching, if you're still interested in game jams and you're not sure, you're on the fence about it, I absolutely say go join one. Nothing can go wrong. There's zero skin in the game for you other than your time and your energy and your passion and finding out some truth about yourself, which might be hard, but it's a really good way to just get yourself involved. And there's a lot of different ones. Like I say, the GitHub Game Off is a month-long game jam. It's not a weekend, so it's way more accessible. And the games, from my previous experience, the games range from very beautiful, polished team things, all the way down to small little baby projects that are from amateurs like me. So don't feel intimidated. Go in it for yourself. And I, again, highly recommend doing the participation thing and asking some of your peers. The game developers are your peers if you're in the game jam, what they're thinking and how they're feeling, and see what you can build with whatever skills you already have. And with that, I'm going to call this video to a close. So if you want to play Out the Door, you can check the description below, but it's davidwest.itch.io/out-the-door. Like I said, the link is in the description. And until next time, have yourself a pleasant day and or evening, and you take care.